Hello everyone, this is Wesor from Wyrmrest Accord, and today I wanted to share with you some of my favorite rare but still available weapons in World of Warcraft. Now, I had a couple of ground rules for when I was making this list. First of all, the weapons must still be in game. Of course, weapons like the Corrupted Ashbringer and the Chromatic Sword are famous for being rare, but what about weapons for players who missed out on those no longer available items? Second, I stayed away from the black market auction house. There are tons of great items available there if you can afford it, but let's stick with weapons that can come from other means for now. This is by no means a definitive list, so feel free to add your own favorites in the comments. With all that in mind, let's get started. First up on the list is Teebu's Blazing Longsword. This is one of the more well-known items because it was lootable through salvage crates during Warlords of Draenor. However, Blizzard removed BOEs from those loot tables during the Legion pre-patch, making this one hard to find yet again. Nowadays, the only way to get it is a very small drop rate from high-end vanilla mobs like those found in Blackwing Lair and Molten Core. While it's technically a world drop, most players end up farming Molten Destroyers, Fire Lords, and Fire Walkers during MC runs for their best chance at getting this lightsaber-esque weapon. It does, however, generate its own light source, making it highly sought after by collectors. Since it binds on Equip, you can also buy it from the auction house, though it won't likely come cheap. Next up are various weapons found within Uldaman in the Badlands. Several dungeon-specific weapons drop there, including the Ginn-Su Sword, Digmaster 5000, and Stonevault Bonebreaker. Now, what makes these items so rare was a change to mob levels and item tables between past expansions. What used to be fairly common drops are now only available from a very small handful of the toughest mobs in Uldaman. In some cases, WoWHead does not even have the drop rates for them anymore. You can find them pop up on the auction house occasionally, and players still report drops now and then, but it could take you hundreds, maybe even thousands of resets before you're able to get your hands on one of these rarities. Here, we have the Felsteel Longblade. For all you smiths out there, this is a craftable weapon. Now, what makes this such a rare item isn't necessarily the sword itself, but those plans. They're a world drop from high-end Burning Crusade heroics and raids with an incredibly low drop rate. Typically, the only people still finding these plans are those farming for the Ashes of Alara in the Eye, although Time Walkers might increase this rate slightly. Because of the unique black katana mog, the sword itself can sell for tens of thousands of gold. The plan itself, sometimes they dip into the millions on some servers. So next time you're out doing bird runs, you might want to check the trash while you're out there. With lots of options available, the Mists of Pandaria Relic Hunter treasures are great for transmog collectors. While not every treasure is a weapon, there's still a great variety available. The difficulty in finding these comes from the spawn cycle of Pandaria rares. Each one is found in a specific location, and only a few treasures are up at any given time on a server. Once looted, they have an incredibly long spawn rate before another is added back in. It would be like if all the rare NPCs shared a timer, and you never know which one was coming up next. This makes finding specific treasures a bit of a journey. While realm hopping has made this somewhat easier, it's still a very time-consuming process. However, as a bonus, you do get a pretty sweet title once you found enough of them. Next up is Shadowmourne. No list would be complete without one of the legendaries on it. However, most of them are fairly easy if somewhat time-consuming to get, which is why I didn't put, say, the Warglaives or Thunder Fury here. Shadowmourne made the cut because, unlike the others, it is not possible to solo farm it. The quest line that starts inside Icecrown is innocent enough, but eventually players run into quests where you must infuse the blade with various properties, with the most difficult being the blood infusion. This requires a minimum of 3 players and making sure nothing goes wrong. That does not include the minimum of 5 weeks farming the raid afterwards. Because it doesn't rely solely on a weekly drop chance, Shadowmourne makes the list. With a large, cleaver-like blade, the Butcher is another extremely rare item to farm. As if the usual low drop rate wasn't enough, it's only found from a few specific mobs, the Scarlet Sentries inside the entry hall to the Scarlet Monastery dungeons. That's right, not inside the dungeon itself, but the entry hall to them. It used to drop from Commander Mograine during the Whitemane fight, but that was eventually removed through the years. Because the Cathedral entrance only has a few mobs and the spawn timer is extremely low, The Butcher can take ages to farm, even for the most stalwart collectors. It is bind on equip, however, so the auction house is an option. Others may prefer finding a Kroll blade, which has a similar model and sells at a considerably lower price. This gigantic mace is called the Unknown Archaeologist's Hammer. While a few maces share the same model, this is the only one in this particular color. To find this weapon, you'll have to go to normal mode as Zin'rokh. It has a very low drop chance from only 7 mobs in the entire dungeon. The first 5 mobs as you enter, and the last 2 mobs before fighting a Zin'rokh. While you can reset the instance, the lack of mobs available will make this a very long grind. Thankfully, this is one of the cheaper weapons on this list in most auction houses if you're really after the transmog. Coming up next is Shadowfang. Like the Archaeologist's Hammer, Shadowfang is a weapon that only drops from a few specific mobs. Inside normal Shadowfang Keep, you'll find mindless horrors in the courtyard, wailing guardsmen in the battlements, and dark creepers in the tail end of the dungeon. With a drop rate of less than 1 in 1,000, it definitely lives up to its rare status. It also was, and perhaps still is, a popular item among Twink PvP players, so expect it to sell between 20 and 30,000 gold on most servers. This may change with the PvP changes in Legion, but for now it remains a sought-after collector's item. One of the best Twink PvP weapons is also one of the rarest weapons currently in-game. The Blackvenom Blade used to drop from a rare mob in Red Ridge Mountains, but was removed with Cataclysm. Now, the dagger can only be found inside battered junk boxes looted by rogues during pickpocketing. As if that wasn't hard enough, the drop rate is so low, many farmers report opening upwards of 20,000 junk boxes before finally getting it to drop. If you are really after it for PvP, one of the better options is pickpocketing all of the stockades for junk boxes, or just spending a couple 100,000 gold on the auction house. If you just want the Mog, a far easier option would be the Black Crystal Dagger rewarded in Silithus. Which weapons top my list of rare but obtainable finds? It couldn't be anything other than the bind on account archaeology weapons from Cataclysm. These weapons include the Scimitar of the Sirocco, the Staff of Sorcerer Thane Tharazon, the Staff of Amunet, and Zin'rokh, Destroyer of Worlds. Perhaps more than any current drops, these items are notorious for sucking up months of game time. Each is estimated to have a spawn rate of only about 1 in 1500, and each solve brings you no closer to finding them than the last. I spent months farming them myself, with Zin'rokh taking close to 600 solves and the Sirocco at over 1,000. Whether you fly across the zones or simply turn in finished crates from Pandaria, there is no fast way of doing these, so be prepared for lots of this. On the other hand, once you get them, the weapon models are gorgeous. The Scimitar has one of the brightest particle effects in the game, and Zin'rokh is, well, it's Zin'rokh. Are they worth a long grind? Maybe. There's nothing quite like seeing one of these pop up as a solve after months of surveying, but it is a lot of work to get there. That concludes my list of rare but still in-game weapons. Happy hunting, and thanks for watching!